Greetings, Banker, and thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the Teach Children to Save Day program. The lesson that I'm going to be showing you today is for grade 1, and it's based upon this book called A Chair for My Mother. When you come to the class, you will have this book, you'll have a lesson plan, it's in your packet, and before you come to the class, what you should do is take this sheet of money, little money things, and cut them apart into rectangles so that you have, there'll be 3 sheets of this, and you cut them apart so that there's one for each child. You'll also have this other sheet which is called a skip counting sheet. You may not have time for this one, but I would have it ready just in case. Some teachers have overhead projectors, and some teachers have electronic smart boards or what are called Elmo projectors. Depending upon what facilities your teacher has, we have the right materials in your packet. So if you don't have any transparencies in your packet, it means that your teacher doesn't need it and doesn't use an overhead projector. So the first thing you should do when you get this lesson is to read through the lesson, make sure you understand everything that you're supposed to do, and I would say read the book and read it out loud. Maybe if you have children at home, read it to your own kids, just to kind of practice, how to read the quotations and all the parts, and you're familiar with the story. So when you get to the classroom, you'll have your book with you, and you'll also have a jar. A small jar like this would be fine, and in the jar you should have a lot of coins, and the lesson plan tells you which coins to have. I would suggest when you get to the classroom, you might even want to prepare by dumping the coins into piles on a table at the front of the room so that all the quarters are in one pile and all the nickels and all the dimes and pennies and so forth. So you're ready to begin the lesson. So you get to the classroom and the kids come in and you say, "Well, good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Jones and I work at the ABC Bank. I really like working at a bank. It's a lot of fun. I get to work with lots of people and I get to help people save for things that they really want. Because saving is an important thing, and when people bring their money to the bank, it's a safe place for them to keep their money, and it'll always be there when they want it." Today we're going to read a story about a little girl and her mother who also were saving. They were saving for something very special, and we're going to find out what it is. You might get an idea of what it is by looking at the title, A Chair for My Mother. And this shows a picture of the little girl going to visit her mother where her mother works at a diner. And then you begin to read the book. And I'm going to read through it for you, just to kind of give you an idea of how this is done. A Chair for My Mother by Vera Williams. My mother works as a waitress at the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and she pays me. And every time I put half of my money into the jar. So here she is at the diner, and when she gets paid, she's earning income. And when she earns that income, she puts half of it into the jar. What do you suppose she does with the other half? Well, yeah, she probably uses it maybe to buy some snacks or maybe buy a new notebook or a new puzzle. So she doesn't have to save all of her money. She saves half of it, and she can still spend the rest. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties the jar, empties her change from her tips out of her purse, and I count it. And then we put all the coins in the jar. And boy, look at boys and girls. That is a big jar. And so her mother puts all of her tips in the jar. Her mother probably earns other money. She earns other income by working at the diner. But she puts her tips in the jar and probably uses the other income to pay the rent and buy groceries and all the other things that families need. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money into piles. Some days she's had lots of tips, and some days she has only a little. Then she looks worried, but each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. It takes a long time to save for the things you want. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips, and there they are, the girl, her mother, and her grandmother. Usually Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings, and they go into the jar. So it looks like the whole family is helping out. The mother saves her tips, the girl saves the money that she earns at the diner, and the grandma saves her extra money too. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take all of that money out and go and buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We'll get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We're going to get the best chair in the whole world. An armchair, boys and girls, is a big chair with big, soft arms that you can actually put your head against. And it's made of velvet, which is really soft and fluffy. That's because our old chairs got burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All of our chairs burned. So did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. And then she tells the story of how it happened. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals, she had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying I liked yellow ones. And then we came to our block. You can see how happy they are coming home from the store. Bought their new shoes. Right outside of our house stood two great big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. And Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" But my Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here, she's okay, don't worry." There they are, the fire trucks. Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. But everything else in our house was spoiled. You can see how it's all burned and gray and charcoal. What was left in the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. Charcoal is what's left when something burns. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow, the floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. The first day we moved in, all of our neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. The old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug. My mother's other sister, Sally, made us red and white curtains, and Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans and silverware and dishes. My cousin even brought me her old stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. She said, "You are all the kindest people, and we thank you very, very much. It's lucky we're young and can start all over." And here you can see all the neighbors bringing them all kinds of things to get them started. That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. "There's no good place for me to take a load off my feet," she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard wooden chair. So that's how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started going into the jar. And look at that. It's just about filled to the brim. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift down. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so I could put it in. After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. "Well, I never ever would have believed that we could fill it, but I guess it's full," she said. My mother brought home little paper wrappers for nickels and dimes and quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills, and then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. It would have been pretty hard, wouldn't it, boys and girls, for them to go to the store to buy a chair with a big jar of coins like this, wouldn't it? So that's why they took their money to the bank, and the bank cashed in all those coins for dollars and $10 bills. It's a lot easier to carry that around than a big jar of coins. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and small chairs, high ones and low ones, soft chairs and harder ones. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks and the 3 bears, trying out all those chairs. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was just enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. They came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. We knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. Here they are in the store, picking out the chair they really want. I tried out the chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but she did let me sit for a while before we took it up the stairs. We set the chair right down beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with the people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. And after supper I sit with her, and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. So, boys and girls, these people were saving, weren't they? They were saving to buy a chair. They needed a chair because their own chair got burned up in a fire. And so they had a reason to save, and they had to save day after day after day, all those coins until they had enough money for a chair. And so now you begin with the activities, and as I said, you would have cut out all of these cards, and we give 1 card to each student. And then you have all your money separated into piles, and what you do, the jar will be open and all the coins will be out of it on the table, and then you call on one of the children, maybe it's the one that has a 5-cent card, and they come up to the front, count out 5 cents, either a nickel or 5 pennies, and put it into the jar. And then the next child comes up. Maybe they're the one that has 25 cents, and they find either 2 dimes and a nickel or a quarter and put that in the jar. And after all the children have come up and put their coins in the jar, then call 4 children up to the front of the room, have them divide the coins into the piles again, quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, and then have the students count the money in the piles and figure out how much money they had. And then you could say, boys and girls, this is a lot of heavy coins to carry around. If I wanted to go to the store to buy something, I wouldn't want to carry around all these heavy coins. So what could I do? Well, I could convert these coins into dollars or $5 bills to make lighter, more easily to carry around. Now you may have time to do a second activity, and that's the skip counting activity. And this is just a sheet that has a row of dimes, a row of nickels, and a row of quarters. And what they do is count by 5s, and they could point 5, 10, 15, 20. Now you would have this sheet up on the projector, and so you could point to it and the children could count by 5s, and then count by 10s, and then count by 25s to find that 10 dimes is the same as, 10 nickels is the same as 5 dimes, is the same as 2 quarters. You would finish up the lesson, and there are other activities that you leave with the teacher, but you would finish up the lesson by reviewing what you've talked about, and that is that saving is important. We don't have to save everything we make. We could save, like the girl in the story, save half. Whenever you get a present from Grandma, save half and spend half. When you earn money doing chores, save half and spend half. It's important to save because someday we may want to buy something that costs a little bit too much than just the money in our jar. And just like the girl in the story, when the jar gets filled to the top, you may want to take that money to the bank and open a savings account. Because in a savings account, your money is always safe and it's always there whenever you need it. And that's the lesson for the 1st grade, A Chair for My Mother. Thank you very much.